Good evening and welcome to the State of the Liberation Movement with Secretary Martin Mungwa, PhD, F.ASCE, a Fellow of the American Society of Civil Engineers. And as always, we commence with Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. Just on Tuesday, November 14th, 2022, Tanga Rudolph Angwe died in prison as a result of being denied timely access to a medical facility by La République du Cameroun military. Now, Tanga Rudolph Angwe is not the first and might not be the last. Many innocent victims of the armed conflict in Ambazonia have died in similar circumstances, dragged to both La République du Cameroun and Ambazonian prisons by the colonial occupier military without any fair trials. And some have died unnoticed or just got missing. This is the sad reality of Ambazonians. The disheartened of Ambazonian when it comes to basic infrastructure like good roads or any other amenity that can make better the lives of the suffering peoples of southern Cameroon has been the constant for the colonial regime. Disheartening has been the constant. Now, because they never consider the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia as one of them, because truly they aren't. And this is one of the reasons southern Cameroon's Ambazonians restored their independence and is now seeking for recognition. What could be the backstory of the colonial regime trying to build the Akondo Titi Kumba Road? Because on established facts, the deplorable state of roads in Ambazonia or the lives of the people have never mattered to them. Is this another gimmick? And where does this one lead this colonial junta? Well, we'll look into that tonight. Tonight in the Liberation Movement with the mouthpiece of the interim government, Dr. Martin Mungwa, F.ASCE, we'll look at fighting the evil of the one Cameroon solution, federation, special status, centralized decentralization, no more taxes to La République du Cameroun. Well, with this, we'll get the prime headlines.
All right, of course, you're welcome to Undaunted. Let's take the prime headlines. We'll start with the story of Tibonaj as he talks on federalism for Amazonia. Also today, Colonial La Republic to Cameroon Army unite to build road. Important alert from General Fire of Ngokentuja County is an information that you need to be aware of. And also today, we're going to be looking at analysis of the terrible state of the prisons in La Republic to Cameroon. Let's get the news.
The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Amazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amber News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Ambazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Ambazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Ambazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Ambazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, 1992, Ambazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amber TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amber TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Amazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Amazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambertv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team.
Thibaut Pitena Jr. is a former United States Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs and a former American Foreign Service officer who served as the American ambassador to Guinea and to Ethiopia. He said in a tweet, and I quote, "Truth, Southern Cameroon Ambazonia community is split between federalists and independent advocates, but everyone should be willing to support a demand for an internationally supervised referendum on the ground to let the people decide their future, not the diaspora." But a concerned Ambazonian wrote a letter to Tibonaj. Now, fellow Ambazonians, we have a lot to talk about tonight, but let's start with this report. Star Smart is here as always. Good evening, Star.
Good evening, Onyi, and good evening, fellow Amazonians. Well, this pained Amazonian said in regards to what Thibault Nash tweeted, this message should be forwarded to Thibault Nash, French Cameroon, and Hard Master. There should be no referendum in Southern Cameroon's territory because we don't have any union treaty with French Cameroon. Why are we breaking? What are we breaking from, if I may ask? The fake plebiscite on February 11, 1961 has no legal bindings according to Article 102 of the United Nations Charter. Respect Resolution 1608 and 1514, we challenge anybody calling for referendum or two-state federation to show us any legal document binding Southern Cameroons and French Cameroon. French Cameroon through Crook, France got her conditional independence on the 1st of January 1960. Southern Cameroon later on got her own independence on the 1st of October 1961, according to Resolution 1608 of April 21st, 1961. Now, what happened with the first fake federal structure that was abolished by French Cameroon through Crook, France violating international law? While accepting referendum in Southern Cameroon is like a suicide mission, dictator Paul Biya has never won any elections, yet he has been in power for 4 decades, killing Southern Cameroon, and the world is silent. The only thing we want from any entity or country is to tell La Republic du Cameroon to respect our boundary as of independence. Southern Cameroonians are tired of double standards around the world. Justice is what we want, and this is what this Amazonian had to say.
All right, but this is uncalled for. For one, who would think that Thibault Nash understands these issues? But how can a statesman who understands legality, who understands international laws and resolution, and how it works, but speaking in these terms? Well, it's been observed that in recent times he's talking in contravention of what Southern Cameroon's Amazonia would want based on the truth of the matter. Now, let's go back in history a bit. Dr. John Ngo was a prime minister of the Southern Cameroons, elected into office after EN Ndele. You know that, right? Now, talking about federation is a turnoff for a true Southern Cameroons Amazonia who understands what this struggle is all about. Now, he wrote a letter for those who are still assuming or thinking about federation. Now, by the way, Fonche was a leader who willfully took Cameroon into that Southern Cameroons into an experimental relationship. And at the end of the day, he felt betrayed. Now, you also need to be reminded that in 1994, he led a delegation of the Southern Cameroons National Council, SCNC, to the United Nations to request his backing of the movement's drive for greater autonomy for Southern Cameroons Amazonia. J.N. Foncher had said that those thinking that federation is a solution to the Anglophone crisis should read his resignation letter on the 9th of June 1990.
Now, Dr. J.N. Fonche highlighted a lot of issues that can explain why the idea of federalism is not of interest to the Southern Cameroon's Amazonia. And during Dr. Fonche's political career, which spanned over 40 years, he headed the group that campaigned for and got the peoples of the then Southern Cameroons to vote for unification, after which he went from village to village in the then East Cameroon at the risk of his life to calm terrorism which existed at the time. He even went further to house some Cameroonians wanted in East Cameroon. He successfully had them reconciled with the Hijo government. He missed being shot down on his way from Bafang on peacemaking missions. And after unification, a lot of Cameroonians had confidence in him. And when the first presidential elections were coming up, many people urged him to stand against President Hijo. But he decided to go for the vice presidency instead in order to avoid unnecessary conflict and further bloodshed. Now, when President Hijo decided to get rid of him as the vice president, a lot of Cameroonians sympathized with him and urged him to make an issue out of it. But then, for the love of peace, he came back quietly to live in his village as a private citizen. After settling in his village, he was occasionally consulted on some national issues, and he accepted to serve the people of Cameroon in whatever capacity it pleased the powers that be to put him. When the leadership of Cameroon changed hands, and of course, Your Excellency became the President of the Republic and eventually headed the CNU, he assured Your Excellency that he was at his disposal and ready from his experience to give him advice he may need on national issues.
Now, unfortunately, this was not to be, as it became clear to Dr. Foncher that he had become an irrelevant nuisance that had to be ignored and ridiculed. Now, he was to be used now only as window dressing and not listened to. He was most of the time summoned to meetings by radio without any courtesy of his consultation on the agenda. That's not all. Also, projects of the former West Cameroon he had either initiated or held very dear to his heart had to be taken over, mismanaged, and ruined. For example, he mentioned the Cameroon Bank, West Cameroon's Marketing Board, WADER, in whom West Cameroon's cooperative movement. Also, whereas he spent all his life fighting to have a deep sea port in Limbe that Victoria developed, this project had to be shelved and instead an expensive pipeline is to be built from Sonora in Limbe to Douala in order to pipe the oil to Douala. All the roads in West Cameroonese government had either built, improved, or maintained were allowed to deteriorate, making Kumba Manfe, Kumba Bamender, Bamenda Wum and Kambe, Kumbo Bamender inaccessible by road. Projects were shelved even after petrol produced enough money for building them and the Limbe seaport.
Now, the fifth point here, all progress of employment, appointment, etc., meant to promote adequate regional representation in government and its services have been revised or changed at the expense of those who stood for truth and justice. They are identified as Fomchaman and put aside. While the sixth is the Anglophone Cameroonian, whom I brought into the Union, have been ridiculed and referred to as les Biafrians and les ennemis dans la nation, and traitors as well, and the constitutional provisions which protected this Anglophone minority have been suppressed, their voices drowned, while the rule of the gun has replaced the dialogue which Anglophones cherished very much. Now, the national media has been used by the government through people who never voted for unification to misinform the citizens about Bamenda. Deliberate lies have been told over the mass media, all in an attempt to isolate the Anglophone Cameroonians who voted for unification and subject them to hatred and more discrimination and harassment from other Cameroonians. Now, embezzlement of public funds in all forms and illegal exportation of our currency by the privileged class seems to go without reprimand, but is rather condoned. And the Constitution, which he held and preached as the supreme law of the land, is in many respects being ignored or manipulated. His resignation was effective from the 9th of June, 1990. Though he died in Bamenda on the 10th of April 1999 at the age of 82, but his legacy continues to live on.
Of course, his legacy lives on, and you remember how we got to this point. Those who are thinking of the Federation, how it's going to be now. He narrated 9 points to let it be clear that it's not going to work. Meanwhile, from that tweet by Tibonage, a lot of controversies emerged. Chris W.J. Robert, who is a fellow at the Canadian Global Affairs Institute, dropped a tweet in this post by Tibonage. Now he says, Federalists might have carried the day 5 years ago if real institutional reform looked possible in Yaoundé, Cameroon. In Yaoundé, he goes on to say Cameroon would be stronger, he says, including in football, as one country. But 5 years of zero effective reforms, millions displaced, thousands killed. And then he mentions this, Frank, on the horizon. What does that tell you?
Well, meanwhile, the Secretary of State for Women Affairs also reacted. I mean, it really brought a lot of reactions. Dr. Patience Abiedu, and this is what she had to say. She said, "You are wrong, sir," with an exclamation, and said Cardinal Tumis and CDN surveys have shown that hashtag independence is the preference of hashtag Southern Cameroonians. "We already restored our hashtag independence. You should rather push for a negotiated settlement between the two warring parties as per hashtag USA as Resolution 684 at Secretary Blinken." She went on to explain that on the 22nd of September 2017, the people of Southern Cameroon rose up in union across every city, town, and village and county with peace plans denouncing the continued decolonization and illegal occupation of their land, and again in a similar fashion came out in their masses on the 1st of October 2017 and reclaimed the restoration of their independence.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
All right, construction works on the 60-kilometer-long Kumba-Ekondo-Titi road that connects Meme and Indian counties will proceed unperturbed. This assurance was given by some CPDM members of the two counties and supposed elites during a meeting at the Colonial Prime Minister's office on Monday, November 21st. Evidently, the octogenarian dictator will go every extra mile to impose construction during war, just to show the world he has control.
Well, these Anglophone slaves are agreeing banking on the Marwa Mora Dabanga Krufseri Road in the far north region of La Republic du Cameroon, which is under attack by Boko Haram, but was carried out by military engineers with the authorization of the World Bank, which financed the project, actually. And Undaunted has noticed a lot of uncertainty and fear in the faces of a failed La Republic du Cameroon government, which could not carry out projects in Amazonia since over 60 years ago, when there was no war, but is today jittery to make eye services to the world in the name of developing Amazonia. The mere fact of bringing traditional authorities from the project site to meet and deliberate on foreign land is a sign that La Republic du Cameroon is already failing.
During the staged, managed meeting, members of the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon Parliament brainwashed so-called colonial makers and traditional rulers of Indian and Meme counties pledged to collaborate fully with the occupier Creole and ruthless La Republic du Cameroon's Rapid Intervention Battalion B Engineering Corps, which has been awarded the project for the road construction. The answers are blowing in the wind on how such collaboration would be with the enemy forces while the Ambazonia Liberation War rages on. Now, let's take a quick look at this ongoing construction before we move on.
The Kumba-Ikondo-Titi stretch, part of the National Road number 16, is not only capital for economic development in Meme and Dian, it is above all part of the commitment taken by President Paul Biya in the Green Tree Accords. Attacks from secessionist fighters have thwarted the construction in the past, prompting the President of the Republic to award the project to the B Engineering Unit. The meeting, which the Minister Director of Cabinet presided on the instructions of the Prime Minister, aimed at looking for ways of supporting the B Engineering Unit for a successful completion of the project.
If this road does not go through, our farmers are suffering. Our children cannot go to school. And that is why the head of state is insisting that this road must go through.
For Meme, this is the most important project for the time being to take us to the next stage. And that's why we, the chiefs, we take it so importantly, we take it so seriously, and we want the authorities to know that we are thankful.
Here we have taken the engagement to see that we collaborate, to tell these boys who are disturbing that please, enough is enough. To please not disturb this road again.
The Minister of Public Works, Emmanuel Ngano Jumesi, who announced an imminent visit to the construction site, said the government is totally committed to the project, Minister Balungeli Confiance Ebune, while closing the session, said Ndian and Meme must make this time the right time for the Kumba Ikondo Titi stretch.
Now, the colonial government in Yaoundé chose the military due to the security threat in the southern zone because, as you saw, there were military watching the road while it's being built. The military engineers were the one that was in charge of that road. And work on the site was suspended several years ago after the war started, even though a so-called La République du Cameroun member of parliament of the area, Ekole Peters, said there was no war. Well, the choice of a military that has been unable to beat the valiant Ambazonian restoration fighters in 6 years and counting is cause for concern that only dull, brain-washed or so-called elites, traditional authorities, self-imposed MPs, and self-made mayors will leave the war zone, Ambazonia, to assemble in Yaoundé, accepting or agreeing on what they know is an impossibility. Construction works on the project has been halted following attacks from Ambazonian liberation fighters in the recent past that thwarted the construction process.
Today, Colonial La Republic de Cameroon thinks that their Rapid Intervention Battalion B engineering unit could serve as a magic wand to release projects in Ambazonia land. If it were true, La Republic de Cameroon slave errand boy Paul Tazang would have used some to release dictator Bier, so-called reconstruction plan of the war. This lofty plan would not have failed as previous ones. Now, based on this premise, Undaunted can conclude without fear of favor that Ikondo Titi Kumba Road remains another white elephant project, a wait and see, or if not, a dead on arrival project.
You see, the Kumba Ikondo Titi stretch is a vector of economic development of Meme and Indian County. It is above all part of the materialization of their commitment taken by genocidal dictator Paul Biya in the Green Tree Accord since 2004, which had been abandoned as well as all other projects abandoned in Ambaland by the colonial La République du Cameroun junta. Now, speaking of abandoned projects, there are not unfamiliar statements. The most we talk about are the roads, because you've seen them also in our reports time and time again, and they are a nightmare. These roads are a nightmare. Do we talk about the Womb Road that has become a valley for mod baptism? Or do we talk about the Bamenda Link Road that is so unmotorable that it has become a spot for accidents? Or do we talk about the major ring road that we've been reporting about for months over now that nothing has been done about yet? You hear this supposed elites talk like they care about the plight of the suffering people of Amazonia. The colonial regime does all this to try to paint out normalcy to international eyes. They are more concerned about what they want, not what the people want.
The deserting of Ambazonia when it comes to basic infrastructure like good roads or any other amenity that can better the life of the suffering peoples of southern Cameroon has been the constant for the colonial regime because they never consider the southern Cameroons as one of them. And this is one of the reasons southern Cameroons, Ambazonia, restored their independence and is now seeking for recognition. The marginalization, outright brutality against them, rapes and murder inclusive. And this is just a new gimmick to convince Ambazonians otherwise. But that has been played too often, and we cannot be fooled this time. You can fool the people sometime, but you cannot fool the people all the time.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
Following persistent impersonation, blackmail, and lack of collaboration that has led to untimely death of some gullible Ambazonia restoration forces in Nkokentuja County, General Fire vindicates himself. In an audio message made on Monday, 21st November 2022, he gives a stern warning to perpetrators. Now, let's listen to this audio. Meanwhile, it's in the Pidgin English.
Today, the number 21 day for certain month of November 2022, na Nigeria fire of the vampires of Ngokotunja, the spokesman of the ARF from the Ngokotunja County home front. Well, my mama, about them, we come today for now with this very urgent information. I mean, everybody share this information only how we receive them. Mr. Remember, no for again for trap is no. Some numbers and they will record couple with the special send up town. And every out of Ngokotunja, every out of Amazonia, say now fire the call. I come today for make this audio. Me anybody receive audio, me share them. Any person will know me fire personally will not say I be somebody will inside this struggle and even before the end of this struggle, I not go ever take my phone call person. They say they threaten say make send me money for any reason. I never ever try. I never ever can try. So if you never ever they talk with me, any number call you send a fire. Not try. If you send anything, any money for the person, no, don't send money for the man. Maybe if you call fighter, I will not say they with me. Where the fighter say they with me, where you not talk with me for phone. You send money for that fighter, I mean, no, say don't send money for the man. I dey come again for talk, and it go as well to any other fighter. Any fighter call, any number call you, use any fighter as a name. Where you never ever talk with that fighter, we never be used to that fighter for talk with you. Me, you know, say anything you do on your own. Yes, because at the comes of the cases that don't happen just of recent, plenty started very up town. So any person receiving information, me share them. Any person receiving information, me share them. And when they come again for talk from now, this one that I first are the last one in this way, with the areas of Ngokotunya will come for pass and out for una. Many fighters don't fall for inside this up town. When I don't kill them. When I the point of military they kill them. Me fire, I come today for make a meet any person with this and up town and no. Say from this today, the 21st of November 2022, any quarter we end or key any amber again for day for inside in up town. That quarter will remain banned for 3 months. I mean say for inside that 3 months, they don't open no store for that quarter and normal for that quarter, no will cross for different quarter. And normal for inside that quarter, no will travel go any place again. Because the key any fighter for your quarter, they catch you for any place out of uptown, out of quarter we did, you know, say with diamond for play the catch you there. So if you like, we will continue. We will chase them, kill her. Even if you don't put fighter the key, if you know say you be man, you strong enough, sticky again with some. And I can't be there for make them know. Say no, not there if you do would we. If they be the key man, say no, say don't kill. If you key man, so not just say you the ghost and I don't kill you, but the key man they know. Now your conscience will worry you. Man don't work a carry a cross. Man don't work a kiki people them. Man don't hold go work a kiki. You don't care for last fight, carry a cross. That means you don't help you go in peace. So now just say plenty when I do that in the out of ignorance. No. If you like kill 1,000 fighters, you know if you change no nothing. And Bazunia must be free, and that one not get that one a fact. Then I do fact. And Bazunia is free. If you know say overturn plenty, go point struggle with the kill them. So me la popule come back waka you na savon. What you want again? No one doesn't mean struggle end so moon not suppress so that when see the encounter waka you na savon and magi them every after 5 years or 4 years. So now there's more information that I'm bringing to the phone. Now me person receive information, make you share them, make you go around. Me man not come for Sunday. Me people that found the ring say office and fixing not day. Any person receive information when I share them, me go around. Yeah, so now small information that we don't get about now. Any say call you say before you say any money or do anything, me not say you don't do on your own. Not talk say you don't even know. I tell you now.
Audio for yourself. This audio became very necessary as General Fire is being used. He's impersonated by imposters and they are making rampant and fake distress calls from within and without Ndop local government area that General Fire is asking for money. Well, that anyone doing so is doing at his own or their risk, basically, for he has never called any person to ask for money. So he's basically warning the audience out there to stay alert, stay conscious, and do not be deceived by these imposters calling for help on his behalf. And anyone who talks with any person on phone using his name is a scammer, a thief. He explains on that voice note that some people use names of fighters to ask for money on phones. He wants perpetrators to desist and warns fighters to beware of strange calls and with whoever is calling because many fighters have fallen prey in such traps.
Now he warned again all those who set traps for fighters as such and exposed them to the enemy because many fighters have died by being exposed in such ways. He said some people go as far as betraying fighters to Colonial Republic to Cameroon military to be killed. Now, General Fire called all enablers in Ngokentuja County as CPDM members who want to keep Ambazonia in perpetual slavery, but that shows the population that Ambazonia must be free. Since this blackmail has become recurrent in Ngokentuja County and very rampant in Ndop local government area, General Fire says any quarter of village that will cause the death of any Ambazonia restoration fighter shall be banned for 3 months by being isolated from communal lift.
While all stores' business premises in such quarters will remain closed and members of that quarters will be banned from free movement because violators shall be killed wherever they are caught. General Fire urges the population in Ngoketunja County to collaborate and share the audio widely so that people would not fall prey to scammers and enablers who want to destroy the struggle.
All right, so let's talk about the terrible state of the prisons. Now, talking about the prison, just last week we reported of late Tanga Rudolph Angwe, who was arrested several years back in a village called Teke in Meme County due to the raging armed conflict in Ambazonia. Now, Undaunted gathered that Tanga Rudolph Angwe died after prison authorities ignored giving him medical attention in his sickbed. News of his death broke out on Tuesday, November 14th, 2022. Sources said he was reportedly sick and prison authorities only took him to the hospital when the situation had deteriorated and he died just a few hours after being introduced in the state health facility.
Tanga Rudolph is not the first case and might not be the last, because a lot of innocent victims of the armed conflict in Ambazonia have died in such same circumstances, dragged to both La Republic du Cameroon and Ambazonian prisons by the colonial occupier military without any fair trials, and some have just died unnoticed and just gone missing. On Tuesday, November 14th, 2022, sources say he was reportedly sick and ignored in prison. Tanga Rudolph Angwe is not the first, and unfortunately, there is a lot of cases like that.
Now, prisons in the Cameroons are overcrowded. Prisoners are protesting what they say is neglect in prison centers, leading to a rapid spread of the coronavirus over the past months. Protests were reported in several locations, including the Kondengi Maximum Security Prison and the capital Yaoundé, the New Bell Prison and the coastal city of Douala, and the Central Prison and the English-speaking western town of Bamenda. Now, according to authorities. Now, a Kondengi prison inmate told Undaunted that prisoners have been holding prayer protests for 30 minutes every day for the past 2 weeks. During these protests, prisoners say they have been crying out for help, pleading for protection against the spread. Now, about 4,500 inmates are being held there, even though it was built to hold fewer than 1,000 prisoners. Lack of sanitation and face masks adds to the difficulties prisoners face in conditions where access to health workers is limited.
Well, authorities say the country has about 30,000 inmates in 78 detention facilities built to accommodate a maximum of 9,000. The government says close to 700 of the 16,250 inmates tested within the past 3 months in 21 prisons were COVID positive, and Amnesty International described the prison conditions to be harsh, with inmates suffering overcrowding, poor sanitation, and inadequate food. The prison in La Republic du Cameroon has always been described as such. Another Ambazonian detainee gives up the ghost.
All right, here is another that. Now, Undaunted has gathered that Venyami Romanus is the third detainee of the Ambazonian struggle to die in 2 weeks. Asang Vig News of the Yaoundé Central Prison and Tange Rudolph of the Boya Central Prison have not yet been laid to rest, and Venyami Romanus of the Bamenda Central Prison has equally joined ranks of victims of Ambazonian Liberation War under the grip of colonial La Republic du Cameroon to die while in detention. Sen Penterens of the Yaoundé Central Prison reports, and he says, while we thank those who rush to their aid on their sick beds, we prisoners of conscience implore everyone reading this and typing rest in peace not to abandon the detainees. They have been forgotten and abandoned to die of hunger and illnesses.
Well, Pence Terrence continues that from Boya to Bamenda to Douala and Yaoundé prisons, the wails of hunger and illness are alarming. If only for once we could put politics and group affiliations behind and put humanity ahead, we will understand that none of these more than 1,500 detainees asked to be locked up. Rest in power, comrades, until we meet again, tell our forefathers that we have not given up. This is Saint Parent Terrence, Yaoundé Central Prison. Now, while Biya continues the massacre, burning, and scorched earth policy in Amazonia, worse things are happening in the filthy prisons. Today, we lost another brother, a prisoner of conscience called Venyemi Romanus. He leaves behind a distraught wife and 4 young children. What did Amazonians do to deserve such cruelty? Free all prisoners of conscience. Lack of treatment caused the young man to lose his life at the Bamenda Central Prison, where he had been incarcerated illegally. Rest in power, brother.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
All right, it's Tuesday, and Tuesdays are always very special to us here on Undaunted. And right about now, we'll move straight to the State of the Liberation Movement proper with Secretary Martin Munga, PhD, F.ASCE. He's always here, and having him is a delight. Well, today we're going to be looking at how La République du Cameroun intends schemes around the concept of federation, special status, centralized, decentralization, and of course, no more status to La République du Cameroun. All right about now, let's have the presence of Secretary Martin Mungwa, PhD, F.ASCE.
Yes, thank you, Onye. Thank you very much for the wonderful reports and captions you've given there. I was not supposed to be a part of this discussion, but there are some topical issues which has got my interest, and I think I would have to join you people as we do it together. We've seen how apologists, chiefs, I would call them enablers, those who have betrayed our generation because of self reasons in La République du Cameroun, seeking to have Biya have his way in Meme County, imposing the construction of a road. The question we want to ask is, after this length of time, after independence, why are we having reconstructions of road now? You've seen our brothers languishing and dying in dungeons and a lot of things. Dr. Mungwa will be addressing us right now and calling on all those watching us on Facebook and on YouTube to keep on sharing. Get ready to ask a question. We will not exceed 90 minutes after now. So you participate and participate effectively. Without any waste of your time, let me take you into the office of the Secretary of State for Communication and IT, Madam Mungwa. Stay tuned.
Global greetings to all Ambazonians, and thank you for coming to today's presentation, November the 22nd, 2022. Today's topic is fighting the evil of the one Cameroon solution, be it federation, special status, centralized decentralization, no more taxes to La République du Cameroun. Dear Ambazonians and members of the international community, on the 22nd of September 2017, the spirit of our people left the jungle of France-Afrique. And on the 1st of October 2017, the interim government proclaimed the restoration of the sovereign statehood of Ambazonia. We have been struggling officially now for 5 years to regain international recognition, notably through the countries that overwhelmingly voted for our independence on April the 21st, 1961. In this period, and before then, Amazonia continues to shed blood due to the state terrorism of La République in our country. Last week, we also had La République du Cameroun military has gone from covert attacks in schools, as in the October 24th, 2020 killings at the Mother Francisca Academy in Fiango, Kumba, to open killings seen in Bamenda last week. La République du Cameroon state terrorists are now going into school compounds openly to terrorize and kill students with impunity. Fellow Ambazonians, this would not be possible if we Ambazonians stopped these La République du Cameroon terrorists from crossing the Munga and the Metazan. During the past several weeks, we talked about Dictator Paul Biya's monologue in Quebec, and whose outcome does not abrogate the December 26, 1959 Accords that have kept Ambazonia in captivity and servitude. The Accord de Coopération has rendered ineffective and non-existent the pseudo-independence of all La République du Cameroun institutions. In short, they are simply rubber stamps with neither the mandate nor authority to resolve pertinent issues of state. Recently, the people of Amazonia witnessed with abhorrence as Mr. Biya's sycophants celebrated the 40th anniversary of the killer occupier of Amazonia. Meanwhile, the genocidal commander himself was completely absent. From a docile and inconsequential prime minister to the mayor-elect of the French pampered president, is yet to understand that mutual suspicion and mistrust can never grow an economy, let alone sell a slogan suggesting an economic emergence in 2035. This week, we will continue the discussion on the devastating consequences of the Accord de Coopération, which engineered the failed federation with La République du Cameroon in 1961. A return to one Cameroon solution, be it federation, special status, centralized decentralization, is nothing short of suicidal and exposes the myopia or outright selfishness of the sellouts and spoilers. First of all, on behalf of your interim government, led by Dr. Samuel A. Komesako, we would like to extend a 21-gun salute to all valiant Ambazonia Restoration Forces in the home front, those preparing for self-defense duties elsewhere, and those in transit to the home front to protect Ambazonians from the state terrorists of La République du Cameroon. To all Ambazonians everywhere and sympathizers in the diaspora who continue to support the suffering people of Ambazonia at home, we of the interim government do not forget, will never forget, and honor our brave people in these challenging times. Once again, our people who think a return to one Cameroon in any of its forms with La République du Cameroon must understand the consequences of that illogical choice. As President Samuel Sako stated during the previous town hall and intergovernmental meetings, it is hard to imagine the stupidity of our jailed leaders who believe they can negotiate their release in exchange of our sovereignty. These unionists, federalists, or special status proponents are willing to subsidize a foreign country called La République du Cameroon under France with 50% of our hard earnings going directly to France under colonial agreements in place between Paris and Yaoundé. Julius Ayuk Tabe and the Naira 10 plus La République du Cameroon enablers, such as Paulinus Joa, Peter Shang, Ufi Chinje, Fayongo Francis, Philemon Yang, Felix Mbayu, Dion Gute, Peter Mafanin Misonge, and co. know that France never colonized Amazonia until her present efforts to enlarge France-Afrique by annexing our country. Dear Amazonians, we now know that the Condengui outliers and La République du Cameroon enablers have decided that independence is no longer on their agenda. They have shifted position, and that's why they were against the Swiss-led process but endorsed the Grand National Dialogue and the Center for Dialogue and Negotiation in Canada, working actively from the objectives of the Quebec monologue, namely break the IG away from the home front, destroy the ARFs loyal to the IG, and make everyone believe that Dr. Sako and the IG are the problem. 8 million Ambazonians cannot be derailed by a handful of spoilers, La République du camera enablers and sellouts. We must close our ranks. Ambazonians must unite under Dr. Sarko's leadership. Now that he has demonstrated his transformational leadership, we cannot sit by and watch. Fellow Ambazonians, these actions by the enemy within is a distraction to evade the bipartisan United States Senate Resolution 684 calling for unconditional roundtable talks with the mediator and guarantors to resolve root causes. It is in the lawless modus operandi of the French-speaking political leadership of the seceded La République du Cameroon to avoid debate and common sense. Ambazonians do not want conflict with La République du Cameroon. This war of Ambazonian independence rises out of the lawlessness of La République du Cameroon vis-à-vis UN Resolution 1608. Article 4B of the African Union Constitutive Act and other international obligations in an illogical quest supported by France to expand France-Afrique. Our message is today geared towards the home front and the ARFs. We must be very watchful and follow the IG directions. While we are pursuing diplomatic means to gain recognition, we are not letting off other options. We have good news. The diplomatic effort is progressing faster than envisioned, but its success depends on our ability to reorganize both at the home front and the diaspora. How do we achieve these objectives? On the home front, no more paying taxes to La République du Cameroon. Anyone caught paying taxes or collecting taxes on behalf of La République du Cameroon is a criminal and must be stopped. All ARFs must adhere to the IG instruction in all aspects of our defense strategy and tactical operations. Financial support will be based on closely established procedures that factor in loyalty, consistency, and peer review. Sustained recruitment of ARFs based on a revised recruitment strategy. Sustained public relations strategy to improve community relationship. Diversified IG communication strategy between the interim government and the Ambazonian people. A sustained appeal from the IG to all misguided Ambazonians, be they coup plotters, spoilers, and blacklists, to rejoin our comrades to fight on a common front to Boya. On the diaspora, create a voting bloc. Like other minorities, creating a voting bloc has several advantages. Politicians will be very willing to deal directly with us to move policies in our favor. Further, like the Eritreans, Ethiopians, and others, we no longer need lobbyists to fight on our behalf. We must work hard in this direction. Increase the funding base. We have come this far because we have the means to fund the ARFs. We believe we can do better. Fellow Ambazonians, our people say La République du Cameroon remains a strong man's wife. That strong man is France. In 2017, we decided to leave that bad luck after 57 years on a road with La République to nowhere. That bad luck is La République's ambition in connivance with France to annex our former sovereign state of Southern Cameroon, aka the West Cameroon component state of the failed federation, to mere regions of La République du Cameroon by dirty tricks, corruption, and administrative edicts. We respect the decision of French Cameroon to stay with France during and after seceding from the failed Cameroon's federation. They are a sovereign people and must chart their own course in history. A road that transfers 50% of the sovereign wealth of our country annually to France in exchange for printed paper money and irrelevant language called French and destitution of our own people has been rejected by the people of the former British Southern Cameroons. We Ambazonians shall define our future collectively and will fight to recolonization or refederation with the devil to the last man standing on the shores, forests, plantations, hills, and valleys of Ambazonia. Short live the struggle for a sovereign and independent state of Ambazonia. Long live the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. Thank you, and over to you, Paddy.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Mungwa. That was amazing. I hope we're taking notes. I'll hand you over to the girls. I think they have the first segment of questions. Then I'll come up with a follow-up.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Mungwa. It's always nice having you here. Of course, short live the struggle and long live the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. Dr. Mungwa, I'm sure that you are very aware of the statement of Tibunaj, and amazingly how our very own Dr. Patience Abiodun tackled him. It's amazing that he talks from all sides of his mouth. And it's amazing as well how the people of Ambazonia, in fact, we had to go through that particular tweet on Twitter, here in the newsroom, and we saw how Ambazonians in the diaspora reacted to that particular tweet. It goes a long way to say that we are not afraid. It goes a long way to say that we know what we want. It goes a long way to ascertain that we are not threatened and we can speak out anytime, any day. I would really want you to emphasize much on it because we also gave a report this evening. Dr. J.N. Foncha, may he so rest in peace, also gave reasons while talking about federation. It's not a news to Ambazonian. It's something that we do not want to talk about. It's something we don't want to talk about. How come Tibonaj is bringing it up right now and at this point? Do you think that he's been eaten from all sides of from all parts of the table as well? I would really need to get your thought. I'm sure Ambazonians will want to get your thoughts too.
Yeah, thank you for that statement, and I'm happy that you actually brought it at this time. I mean, one thing I would like to make very clear is that Thibault Nash has an opinion, and he's free to exercise that opinion or that right to comment on what is happening, not only in Ambazonia but in all parts of the world. But ultimately, it is us, the Ambazonians, to decide or to fashion the way our future has to be. So it is not surprising to me that from time to time you may get comments from political or from diplomats or some politicians that may not be enough to our liking. But you should also understand, if you look backwards at the statements that were made or have been made by Thibault Nash over the past couple of years, you can see that there has been a gradual departure from a position where you knew very well that he was not really for our independence, all the way to a point where now you can see a little bit of softening from him. It might not be the ideal, but I think we will be the ones to define exactly what we want, whether it is obviously not federation but independence. There has been an overwhelming demonstration that we want independence, complete independence. For example, there has never been any demonstration at the home front, people asking for federation. We have never seen that. When Amazonians went to the streets on the 1st of October, it wasn't for federation. It was for complete independence. We have a lot of indications, a lot of facts and figures to demonstrate that we are all going for independence. Thibault Nash's statement should not discourage us whatsoever. We have to keep pushing because it will come a time that he realizes or he will realize that we are for complete independence. And that should be our goal. We want recognition. That is our goal. And we have to keep pushing. So I can understand the frustration from a lot of Ambazonians, I included. But at the same time, you also have to realize that there has been a shift in his position over the past couple of years from a position where he did not even believe or accept that we have to be independent to a point where at least he has recognized the fact that there might be a choice. But we are telling him that that choice is not realistic. We are certain that the overwhelming majority of Ambazonians want independence, not federalism. And as I indicated in my presentation today, whether it is federalism or special status or centralized decentralization, these are all different phases of a union with La Republique. So they don't really matter whether you're talking about federation or union or whatever, special status. That is all part of one Cameroon solution. We do not want a one Cameroon solution. We cannot be celebrating October 1st and then thinking about a one Cameroon solution. So I hope that message is clear, and let people understand. Let people understand that there's only a binary choice here. You are either for independence or not for independence. And Ambazonians have opted for independence. And I think that message is clear. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Martin Mungwa. In your speech today, you said something about we no longer need lobbies. Quoting you, you said we no longer need lobbies, and that has a lot of connotations to that. Could you please explain what that particular phrase meant?
Yes, what I meant, and it's very clear, and this is part of, some of the discussions that have transpired within the government and and in the town halls. If we can create a voting bloc, if Ambazonians can come together to form a voting bloc in the United States and elsewhere, we are going to be so powerful that politicians, whether it's congressmen or senators, instead of us going through lobbies, they will come directly to us. And that will actually be a way to save money. So if we have a voting bloc, which means that if they know, like in the case of Eritreans and Ethiopians, they form a very strong voting bloc in the United States. They know that if they support a policy or if they support a congressman or a senator on a particular bill, that will go through because they have the numbers behind them. Remember, politics is about numbers. So if we can come together to form a voting bloc to make sure that we can channel our challenges, or we can channel our grievances through the political process, I think a lot of things will be done in favor of Ambazonia. So that's what I meant. It does not mean that we have to dismiss the lobbies that we have at this point. We'll still have to keep them, but at the same time, we have to establish a very strong voting bloc, and that will be very helpful to push our case forward. I hope I've made it clear. Over to you.
Very. Okay, we must work hard in this direction and increase the funding base. When you say that, like, how do you think that's going to be possible? Because so far for the funding base, we have the draft, which has been suspended, which has actually come to the end. I think it was left with just 2. And apart from the draft, what other, I feel you might know better since you suggested the funding base. What other options do you think are there? Because that's the only one we are aware of, the drafting. What other funding base do you think?
No, the draft has not been suspended. In as much as we are not really active in going on air, people still draft because we still have some open items that have to be dealt with. When we talk about expanding that base, of course, we would like more Ambazonians, given the fact that Dr. Sako has demonstrated beyond reasonable doubt that he's a transformational leader, that he's actually on a path to take us to Boya. I think it will only be logical that all the Ambazonians that we have in the United States can come and join the fold so that we can put more financial support in order to give us the possibility to deal with some of the financial challenges that we have. That's what we meant. But at the same time, even within the draft structure or within any of the, whether it is a lava storm or the draft, of course, people can come in multiple times in order to in order to provide the funding. That has not been closed out. So we still have a lot of open financial opportunities where people can come in and help. But of course, even at the level of at the local government or LGAs and counties, depending on where they are, there are other structures within them which people can support on an active basis. For example, trying to renew our monthly levies, even going to the AID that is being established, becoming a club member, the ABC Club member, whether it be a Patreon or any of the different baskets that we have. I think these are all opportunities where Ambazonians can come in and help us so that we can sustain the revolution and sustain the channel that we use in order to reach Ambazonians. Thank you. Over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Mungwa. Now, at some point in your message tonight, you talked about the message directly towards the home front and the Ambazonian restoration forces of fighters. Now, after that, you mentioned that no more paying of taxes to La Republic de Cameroon. You emphasize that anyone caught paying taxes or collecting taxes on behalf of La Republic de Cameroon is a criminal and must be stopped. Now, with so much insecurity ravaging the home front, how can this be achieved with safety? I mean, when they will get pressured, what kind of assurance is the interim government giving to our brothers and our sisters at the home front, where it has been stated right now that there'll be no more paying of taxes? How can this be coordinated at the home front in a way that, the colonial government or the colonial military do not take it hot on our people?
Okay, first of all, I would like to make it very clear to you that the legal department and the presidency, they are still working on the nitty gritty of this new policy that's going to come out. But you have to understand the status that La Republique finds itself. La Republique is in chronic financial mess. And if you have been reading the news, even in La Republique, you realize that the new finance bill is out and it is laden with taxes and taxes and taxes. So, first of all, you want to ask yourself, what service have we been getting from La Republique because we've been paying taxes? You realize that it's absolutely nothing. You take something like simply a pre-notification or verification of bank account before you have direct deposit payment. You have to pay 25,000 francs for that, just to give a verification, verification. You can imagine it. I never knew that you had to pay money. In most places, it never happens. But you have to pay 25,000 francs to do that. You have the stamp, what they call the finance stamp that they sell around. It moved from 1,000 francs to 1,500. But the funny thing about the whole thing is that there will be a lot of counterfeit stamps brought from overseas by members of government, and they will sell them and pocket that money, and they will sell them to the population, and you think that that money is going to soil the coffers of state. No, they're going into private hands. They have done that for the past 61 years. That's what they do. They go to Taiwan, they go to China, they print these stamps and they sell them because there is no verification process. So if people think that they're going to pay 1,500 francs to get this sort of finance stamps and that money is going to the national coffers, you must be joking. The government is actually on a chokehold by the IMF because of non-payment of their debts. So the IMF has taken over the budget of La République du Cameroon. And that's why they're imposing all these taxes. You can also see that, in fact, La Republic has gone crazy with seaports. They said they were going to open a seaport in Limbe. They're going to open the seaport in Tico, sorry, in Victoria, and then Tico. They haven't finished even the seaport in Kribi, and the Douala seaport, of course, is under severe debt. What has happened? They want to extend another seaport in Manyuka Island off the Douala coast. Something is happening. Our investigation has led us to believe that it's very likely that the Chinese have seized the Kribi seaport because they have not been paying the loans that they took from China. So it is under control, and that's why they are turning to Manioka to extend the Douala seaport. So you can see that La Republique is in a terrible mess, and they go around telling us that they want to build seaports. They've gone seaport crazy. Sao Tome is actually opening another seaport, deep seaport, much larger than even Douala, by the Chinese. You have Nigeria on the Bakassi side. They are also building a seaport. Why is La Republique going for seaport? Is it's something that I don't understand. And even when they started singing that song of seaport in Limbe or seaport in Victoria, seaport in Tico, what has happened? No information as to when that seaport will be commissioned, and they've just gone silent. That is La Republique for you. If you look, there's a tally of almost 50 projects that have been promised over the past 40 years or so by La Republique, and they're all on paper. They're all white elephant projects. So it is not surprising. They are in desperate straits. And now what they want to do, they want to come to the common man, and the common man will now fund the government. And yet, even that money will not go to the national coffers. That money is going to go, most of it, into private pockets, and that's what they've done over the years, and that's why they are unable to pay their debts. So they have failed in paying all the external debts, and now the IMF is in the house trying to manage the budget so that they can get their money and pay their European debtors. That's what is going on in La Republique today.
Very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Anyways, this week we brought, even today, we brought a report about the military, colonial military, being the ones in charge of the construction of the Mekondo Titi Kumba Road. And yet they have been, bringing to the eyes of trying to convince the entire world and the international community and the international eye, fronting the idea that everything is under control and there is no war in Ambazonia. Well, do you think that the international community and observers would buy the idea, would buy the lie that there is no war in Ambazonia?
Absolutely not. They will not buy it. This is something that La Republique thinks that they are some sort of in a bubble and nobody understands what is happening. When CNN, cable news network in the United States, gave a report on the war in Ambazonia, Bloomberg News and all market intelligence, they were able to investigate the situation, and anybody who is investing in La Republique, I don't think they know exactly the risk factor. And that is why most companies are not interested to invest in La Republique, because of the war factor. And you can understand that the only logic is for them to go to the bay to build this road. They cannot call any international company to do it because they know the risk factor. It's already been registered, and La Republique is just a matter of time for them to understand the impact of that. And it's actually taking hold, because you even take the case of Sonora. People said, well, Sonora was not rebuilt because they did not pay the insurance. No, they did pay the insurance. But when it came for reconstruction, they looked through the books and discovered that that facility was in a foreign country. It wasn't in La Republique. Because in the books, the name of Cameroon is La Republique du Cameroon. And when you look back into history, Ambazonia was never associated with La Republique du Cameroon. You can understand why Biya tried to change it in order to bring us in through the back door to be part of that country. And they're still fighting today. No. So bringing in the bill to build that road, of course, that's the only option they have. But I can tell you, having been a professor at the Polytechnic, having actually taught and trained a lot of those bills because they were my students, I can tell you that that quality of the road will be questionable, because when I look at the road, I wonder what type of geotechnical studies they have performed in order to make sure that that road will last for long. Do they have the equipment? Do they have the expertise, the know-how, and the experience to design and construct roads like that? I really wonder. But that's a story for another day. Even if they do construct that road will have a very short life. I can assure you that. Over to you.
Yes, Dr. Munga, that particular story of Meme is one of the issues that brought me into this discussion of tonight. As we have just about 30 more minutes, Ambazonians, I'm calling on you watching. The phone lines are open. We will be ushering you now to take some of your questions and of course. And so you call in because we will not extend the time. Dr. Mungwa indicated we were supposed to start earlier. I apologize, but it's always important we start at the time when people at the home front are seated listening to this, to the Secretary of State for Communication talking. When he comes to talk, it's not like any activist or activist making some noise. We're talking about policy. We're talking about statements that have been processed by the interim government think tanks, and then The Secretary of State comes to put them the way it should be. Every week he comes to path the way forward for the nation, and that's why it's called the State of the Liberation Movement. Yes, Dr. Mungwa, I get back to you on this issue of that road. It is not just an insult or a provocation. It's not just a ploy by La République du Cameroon to waste lives, because they recognize that the restoration forces intercepted the construction of the road. Is it that we Amazonians, we don't like our home to be developed? But there is a purpose why we intercepted it, because we know the objective. And it is that objective which I would like you to talk more of. The intention of Cameroon insisting during wartime to enhance a road that should have been built 40, 50, 30 years ago.
Thanks, Padi. That's you said it. It's a provocation, obviously, and it is the narrative that they have tried to sell to the international community that they are in charge. It is not. It is not. It is not surprising even to the interim government. But what is important is the sort of strategy that we have to put into place in order to stop the progress of that construction. I can tell you that that construction, I don't think it's actually meant for the good of those in Meme, that part of Amazonia. It's actually to favor further exploitation of the resources that we have in that part of the country. And for that reason alone, I don't think we should allow it to go any further. We have seen for the past 40 years, the only things that La République does, that the thing is on the critical path, are only things that they can use for themselves and nothing to do with the local people in those areas. And this is one of them. So I won't be surprised that they are actually putting emphasis on that road in order to have access to some of the natural resources that are in those parts. So we have to bear that in mind. It's not necessary for the good of the people, because you can see that over 40 years, all the exploitation that they have carried out in this part of the world, where have you seen the development in terms of schools, in terms of health centers, in terms of just the living standards of the people? Nothing. So let us not be fooled. And when you see the unfortunate chiefs coming out to state that, oh, we are behind the government to construct this road, and at the same time they have failed to reflect on what they have done in the past 40 years to reinvest some of the capital goods that they have exploited from these regions, and you realize that it has been an absolute disgrace. Nothing has happened. They have never plowed back any of the profits that they have made as a result of exploiting all the resources in that part of the country. And that's why.
Before we move on, sir, we have a caller. The first caller, I think Pastor Victor is here to make a contribution. Yes, sir, go right ahead.
Yes. Are you hearing me well?
Very loud and clear.
Okay, sorry, I just joined the broadcast now on the news. I don't know if Dr. Mungwa already addressed this issue. I read an article here from Kibonagi. He writes, common split between federalists and independence advocates, but everyone should be willing to support the demand for an internationally supervised federal referendum on the ground to let the people decide their future, not the diaspora. I am personally preparing a response for Dr. Nagy or for Mr. Nagy. I wanted Dr. Mungwa to say something about it, because these are the kind of narratives that if people don't read within the line, they would think that Mr. Nagy has been speaking for us. Because where is Mr. Nagy coming from with asking or talking about a referendum to the people of home front, not those in the diaspora? If not, this is not a narrative of ANO and the Republic. it is sad that we see diplomats like this that will come out there and paint the picture that they are fighting for us, or they want justice and equal justice and for the people of Amazonia. But when you hear narrative like this from them and you see write-ups like this from them, you are bothered to think about the fact that they are speaking, or they have come to try the waters on behalf of the Republic to see our reaction and see how they can continue with that kind of narrative. I want to add my voice to that of objective voice to condemn this act from Demonagi. You are a respectable diplomat that we know you know the plight of the people of Southern Cameroon. You know there is no treaty of union with La Republic and Amazonia or Southern Cameroon. You know there is nothing that binds us together. And you are trying to take the narrative of Anu, who don't even understand what Eritrea and Ethiopia went through, or what South Sudan went through, because referendums were conducted in these places. Anu naively take this proposal and put out there, and then a seasoned diplomat who understands that Amazonia has nothing in common with the Republic, but a fair referendum that the United Nations was not even there to represent itself, and the Republic came and failed us. Even if the referendum was a true one, he knows that the Republic already backed out or seceded from that referendum by coming out of it and renaming themselves La Republic of Cameroon. Just like I heard Professor Mungwa saying in there, the construction of the ship of the Sonora could not go on because it is found in southern Cameroon. Meanwhile, they are putting it as though it's a facility in La Republic. Meanwhile, it's not in La Republic. La Republic knows this. I suppose that Demon Nadi knows this truth. But when he put out a narrative like this and say, oh, the people should decide in a referendum, we want to condemn this act and tell Demon Nadi that there is no referendum because there was no treaty union. There's nothing to debate. The United Nations can correct their mistake by just coming and acknowledging our independence, which they already voted for. A resolution for this is 16.08. Demon Nadi knows about that resolution. He cannot paint the picture as though he's very naive and does not understand this and try to paint the picture like an illiterate person like Anu who will come and say referendum. When the same Anu was condemning a referendum in 2018 and 2019, now that he has collected money from the Republic, he comes to find the agenda for a referendum, knowing that the Republic will corrupt the referendum and everybody will come and ask about it, such a mess. It's so sad.
It's an apology.
We can fight it for equal justice for our people, and then people will come from the behind to come and echo stuff like this. I don't know if Dr. Mungwa has addressed this issue before. If not, you can throw more light for the people of Amazonia, because when they see right like this from Nagi, they think that is something good for us.
Yes, yes, Pastor Commando. Just so you're aware.
Pastor Victor I think. Is it?
Yes, Pastor Victor. Just so you're aware, we had an elaborate report and side comments on that, and we also had Dr. Mungwa earlier on reacted to it. I think Star Smart asked a question that was in that delight, but then Dr. Mungwa, you are the spokesman. Maybe when Pastor Victor listens to your voice, he may feel more consoled when it comes to interim government position and reaction.
Yes, I think Pastor Victor gave all the ingredients that were contained in my earlier statement, and to make sure that I just give a summary to it. Thanks, Pastor Victor, for that commentary. Everybody is, if not most, if not all Ambazonians, they are very taken by that statement by Thibault Naj. As I said earlier, he has the right to make comments as he sees it, or as he sees them. But we Ambazonians, we have to chart our future. It is left to us to fight and make sure that our voices are heard, and the decisions that apply to us are the decisions that we want. Remember that when this war started, I think very few people had confidence that we're going to survive. There were people who felt that, oh, if La Republique could just open a little bit, maybe we can give up the fight. But you realize that La Republique has never moved from where it was 5 years ago. And it is really shocking and at the same time a little bit disturbing that having realized that La Republique doesn't move at all, every diplomatic statement seems to sort of favor La Republique. It's as if La Republique is a spoiled child that nobody can ever say no to her. So it is very, very disturbing. I thought by now, having watched La Republique go from genocidal, killing us, destroying villages, and all sorts of atrocities, at least they will come to their senses and say, these people have a right. You were both Class B countries at independence. Why is it that you are independent and others have to go through another referendum to have independence? That should be it. I thought would be a very, very quick and easy solution. But you realize that it's not. So this is just it's a warning, it's a call to Amazonians that this fight is not over. And when we talk about what the front has to do and what the diaspora has to do, it is very serious because we make sure
that has been insisting. I'm sure he wants to make a contribution. Yes, hello, caller.
Please let me finish. So I want to make sure that we can actually close our ranks so we can have a united force to make sure that this independence move is not a joke, so we can move even much faster. And that's what is coming from the interim government. Thank you. Over to you.
Yes, caller, you can make your contribution now. Hello, caller. Yes, Amazonians, when you call and Dr. Munga is speaking, just do yourself some diligence to be patient. You can't interrupt him talking. When you call, he's the one that's supposed to respond to your call. You cannot impose your timing. I'm sorry about that, but protocol demands that you wait, and when he's done, you can go ahead. I think this caller is not interested to make his contribution. Let's make progress, Dr. Mungwa. You see, this whole ploy is intricately linked, and like you see, we captioning on the screen, we are fighting the current evil, or we fight the current evil scheme aimed at smuggling in federation or federal state, or whatever you call it.
Yeah, let me just make an addition here, just a little sort of. People also have to understand that Tibonage is just one person, and he alone cannot represent the opinion of the world or the opinion of every political person anywhere in the world or even within the United States. And we really have to understand that. So let's not just be so upset just because Tibonage said it. It's one person and it's one opinion, but we do recognize the influence that he wields, but it's still the opinion of one person. And we will move forward with our agenda. We will move forward with our quest for recognition. That has not changed the position of the interim government by no means. That I want to assure Ambazonians. We are in full thrust for recognition. And I want to make this very clear. Over to you, Paddy.
Yes, recognition is what is legally correct and historically backed right now. But then when you have those who supposedly, or a few days ago, were talking on behalf of the peoples of Amazonia, now also thinking that referendum should be given, I begin to ask myself, I wish I had Tibonage and these individuals in front of me to ask, why will the independence that has already been voted be given to a people via a referendum? Because you see, there's an insinuation there. It's tricky, and if we're not careful with our narrative, it could be interpreted or misquoted or misconstrued that we are not trying to be democratic. I spoke with someone from the home front who is also claiming that we have to give home front. So it's all about a lot of people gearing towards the same angle. You have those who want power to be given to the home front in the self-defense or the self-defense apparatus to be handed over to the home front for management. You have now Tibonaji says the people will have to make a choice position through a referendum. I would like to ask, did the United States of America go through a referendum to gain their independence? Why is the independence? Maybe it's a misconception. So these are the lines of discussion which anytime we need to come up and to reiterate, Dr. Mungwa.
Yes, you can see now there is a fine line, and you've made that fine line whether the United States went through a referendum. Obviously, not everybody supported the United States being independent. There were some who still believe that they would like to be under the empire of Great Britain. But obviously, we all know from historical facts that there was no referendum. Coming to our case, I think that's where the interim government has been extremely direct, because we observe how the Ambazonian political scene, the tapestry, we know what is happening, and we make resolutions in order to enforce our path to independence. And that's why we came up with these proposals as to what has to happen at the level of the home front and what has to happen at the level of the diaspora. The idea that, you have people, this is the opinion now, because to the best of our knowledge, those who went to Canada, those monologues, those bought by La République du Cameroon, who went to Canada, these are the same the people that even people at Ground Zero, they don't even want to see. And yet now it's coming out that, maybe those who support federation may have a significant voice. That's why we have to work very closely with the home front. We have to work very closely in terms of communication, in terms of what is happening with the ARFs, in terms of funding of the ARFs, so that we maintain our tactical superiority over La République. We have to be in control of that. We need to be in control of our land. And by so doing, the path to independence will be much quicker. It will be much, much quicker. So this is the recommendation that the interim government is trying to let Ambazonians understand, that when we have that military override, military strength over La République du Cameroon, the question of independence will no longer be subject to anybody disputing it. So we understand, but at the same time, as I said, we've come a long way, where this same gentleman had a different opinion. Again, today, he's just one person airing his opinion. And this is a free country. People have the right to say what they want. We can't control what he's saying, but at least we can read through and understand what we need to do in order to be a much stronger government, a much stronger people, at least moving together in the same direction. Over to you.
I think we have a caller here. This should be from the home front. Do you want to make a contribution, caller? Yes, you're live on ABC Ama TV.
Okay, thank you very much. Greeting to Dr. Mungwa and to your own church, and greeting to South Cameroon and Macedonia. I think we should know very well that this struggle is a struggle like a race, like a prayer mountain race. When you are at the first position, you must know very well that there will be obstacles on the way level to our.
Maybe you want to increase your volume? Yes, it's better now.
Yeah, I say this, our struggle is like the prayer mountain race. When you are at the first position, you won't know that you face obstacles coming down from the mountain if you don't want to be the first. And so long as you are at the first position, you will have every type of obstacles upon obstacle. And if you give up, you are the loser. If you give up, you are the loser. Just know very well that once you are on a race and with the right way of running and with the truth, with the spirit of truth in you,
Once you have the truth of spirit in you, no matter what Tabernacle has said, it's just like someone who's out to stop the obstacle of looking fast. And doing that is encouraging you to accelerate all what you have to take that first. Even if you have to fall down, or creep, or you roll to take that first position. Actually, that is what is happening. We should not be discouraged like I got Pastor who was so angry. No. We back home from, we have that confidence. But the bigger thing is, our obstacle is just our so-called professors have delayed themselves to Canada. That is the most disturbing thing. But any other person that definitely just to play his own part. But first of all, we're at the right point and speaking the truth. There's nothing that can overcome the truth. The evidence to the people of Barcelona are just too much to saving point. That's why the fight is going right on the point and nobody can destroy it. Why? Because it's very objective, it is very truthful, it is very direct, and it is very godly. Good night.
Thank you very much. Before you leave, I would like to just ask you some questions. I believe Dr. Mungwa will be reacting to what you have said, and I'm glad that this kind of energy is coming from the home front. I wanted to find out from you, where from the home front are you calling precisely, and how are you receiving our signals, ABC and TV signals?
The signals are very clear.
Amazing. So you're using satellite to connect with us.
Yeah, the satellite dish.
That's amazing. So now, how is the spirit at the home front? The spirit at the home front. Our people looking forward to what is happening now.
They already feel confident now. Not so much the people have a mastery of this revolution, especially the younger, displaced people from the villages, the IDPs who do not have the means of having satellite.
A livelihood.
Yes, but you who have it, and all what I can tell you that the communication department of the ABC should accelerate their ways of communicating. They should not let the communication should be all that. The new communication, don't rely on old communication. Then every day there should be new things coming up to let the people know what is actually happening. Everything. There should be new communication.
Okay, thank you for that update. We look forward to seeing you another time. Dr. Munga, please.
Yes, thank you. And I really like to thank and congratulate the gentleman from the home front. And I would like to remind Ambazonians that without the interim government, the troops on the ground will be exposing themselves to be termed mercenaries or terrorists. They will be seen as the real secessionists. So they are the ARFs because of the interim government. So the ARFs and the interim government, that's what constitutes our government that will take us to Boya. So I want to let everybody understand that the troops on the ground are being sustained and supported under the structure of the interim government. So people should understand this. And I'm happy from what you've just indicated that at least people are getting the signals on the ground and they're actually following the directions of the interim government. We are going to improve on communication. We are going to improve on the way we deal with the ARFs going forward. It will not be what we have witnessed in the past. And I'm sure the Secretary of State for Self-Defense, if he thinks it's necessary to talk to ambassadors about it, but I think it's more important on the structures, on those that are in the command structure of the ARFs. So there's a new structure and a new way of dealing with the ARFs, which is far more efficient now, with a lot of the bottlenecks and the unknowns that we used to take for granted. All that has been wiped out, and we are going to deal with a far more superior command structure. Over to you.
Dr. Mungwa, from what you're saying, I sense that the interim government has gone back to the very fabric of what was bringing our glory and heydays in the late 2020 into 2001, and that Coopers interfered with it to do a revision, a review, and now re-strategizing. That means we have admitted to the loopholes, and we are ready to, in fact, already filling in the gaps. We've seen what's happening now at the whole program.
Absolutely, absolutely. We must do a stock in trade and see exactly what has happened over the past 2 years or so, and to for every a professional, we're trying to develop a professional army. You have to understand this, and there must be a beginning. It doesn't just happen out of nowhere. We must be able to recognize our weaknesses, recognize our strengths, reinforce our strength, try to replace our weaknesses, and we're able to see in certain areas where we felt that things have to be done in a different way. And we came to the realization that by effecting these new changes, we are going to bring in the soldiers together, and we'll be dealing with a far more reliable entity than we did before. From what the La République du Cameroon enablers did. You also have to understand that every time that La République tries to cut around and try to use our own people against us, we become stronger. The government is smaller but meaner, if I can use that word. We're much stronger than what we were before. I mean, I don't have to tell you that the government of December 2021 is by no way similar to what we have today. Things have changed dramatically. All the in-house wranglings, all the quarrels, all the insults, they're all gone. But it's thanks to us sitting down and trying to go back on the drawing board to see what we can do to improve. The days are gone when they used to sit in cabinet meetings insulting each other, and you have people standing up and saying, we have the last word, or I'm going to do this or that, or I'm against one cabinet member. Well, the days are gone. And it's thanks to even the so-called coup plotters who initiated that, and we identified them and we got rid of them. It's the same thing within the ARFs. We have improved and we know exactly what we do in terms of recruitment, in terms of some of the tactical structures that we have, even the strategic outlook. Everything has changed. So we have.
Now, Dr. Mungwa, what you say right now gladdens my heart and the minds and the hearts of Amazonians listening. But then I want to ask you specifically, aside from the replacement of officials that were coup plotters and defaulters and enablers and blacklegs within the interim government framework, what is that qualitative improvement that you will say this government has been able to make, considering one of three things or all? Internationalizing the struggle, homeland, self-defense apparatus, and when it comes to resource mobilization?
Oh, all those three items are some of our very close guarded secret that I cannot come here to tell exactly what we're doing. In terms of internalization, if you listen to what I said there is good news. We are moving faster than we had
exactly where I wanted you to.
I put that statement there deliberately because I'm talking from what I know. Please, and I want to caution Ambazonians, when it comes to diplomacy, you don't tell people every day, oh, I went to the, to this address and I talked about this and then we had a plan to do it. I cannot be doing that. At least we are mature about that. We are not, we should be very careful about that. But let me tell you that the diplomatic move and inroads that we've made since October 1st is probably, twice as much as we did for the, previous 6 months or so. But I cannot come here to tell you about that. When we come to some of the tactical and strategic changes in our command structure, have you ever heard La République telling you? Do they tell you when they are going to send their terrorists to our country? That is a close guided secret. We only know when.
Something I want. I'm not wanting you to give the strategy. I'm talking if you have to make an appraisal because you've spoken in the peripheries, actually appreciating the fact that the exit or the exit of coup plotters by default and by a conscious decision is a blessing. So I'm asking, what is that qualitative, if you would have to, in a summary, present to the world and to Ambazonia some of these qualitative progress that we made as a people in this delight?
I have, yes, even in my speech today, I did talk about it. Probably you not listening, or you were sort of. We have,
You
we
will
have
repeat it.
talked.
I'm
Yeah,
asking this question intentionally.
listen, I am deliberately not. I cannot go into self-defense tactical arrangements. I can't go into that. But the fact that I brought it to your attention means that something has been done because we have sat down and we have looked into, and we cannot tell you. We talked about um, peer review. You've never heard about peer review before, have you? So when people are in command, they're not just in command because President Sako believes that, um, uh, Mr. or whatever, Captain Joe or somebody, I think for what he did last week, he will be made this, or he will be given the authority to use to be in charge of this budget. No, you need peer review. Peer review means that even people who report to you, they must all agree that this is somebody we all accept as our leader, and we are going to take command from him. It's not going to come from the top, it's going to come from there. It is very important, this aspect of peer review. I'm just giving you one example. I cannot go into specific details. Peer review is very important. So it comes to even allocation of funds, it comes to responsibility on certain budget lines, and so on and so forth. Decision on what to get or what not to get. We have restructured that in such a way that it's streamlined, and it makes sure that it is safe from the past, where people just used to assume that, okay, if you are an ambassador, then we believe that you can do this. We discovered that that has not been the fact. When you had even people in cabinet who were given responsibilities, financial responsibilities, they took money and they disappeared. That is not going to happen again. That's all I'm trying to tell you. It's not just being ambassador. It's
That is
more than that.
definitely the qualitative assurance and reassurance that I wanted you to say. Unfortunately, your last statement carried a few of it. I'm not, most of the things I'm asking, I happen to be privy to some of the information, but then I stand here in the state of the people who are hungry to be hopeful that they have people sitting and working on their behalf to ensure that they're not just having a logo as an interim government, but a structure they can reckon with. Dr. Munga, I have my last question for you, and this is important because let's shorten it to the past 2 years. You mentioned 2 years, and I think I'd like to stay within the 2 years time frame. You've occupied different portfolios within the interim government, and these are very critical, relevant portfolios. Maybe because of who you are, and you were given this responsibility to serve Amazonia at that time. If you have to make a statement in retrospect of the past 2 years, what would you say that if we have to reverse time, you and the government should have done better?
Well, that's a very tough question, and it has its positive and negative. Um, I mean, the positive is very simple. I think the experience that Ambazonians have gone through at the level of the interim government and the changes that have come to bear in terms of people being moved or people being allowed to leave the interim government to bring others who are more responsible, I think that has been a good thing. Obviously, the sad part of it is that I wished we had come to that realization maybe 3 years ago. We definitely would have been much, much stronger today. But remember, we were responding to the push from the home front. I believe that 3 years ago, if certain cabinet members were dismissed, the whole home front will go into pieces, because they already had a belief system that a particular person was the person they believe was actually, uh, uh, telling the world about our struggle or about our revolution, until we realized that that person was actually a wolf in sheep's clothing. So we've come to that realization. All I'm saying, I would like to say, is that we went through lessons learned. And there's nothing better in restructuring any organization than lessons learned. As a human enterprise, there is no way that you can be perfect from the day go. If you have found such a human enterprise, I would like to know how it was put together. Even the best of organizations, they always fall short over time, and it's only logical that if they can review the processes that they go through, the processes that they follow, and make changes, make positive changes, making sure that you have people who are qualified, people who are knowledgeable, people who are able to accept weaknesses and make the change. If we have those people, I can assure you that we are on the right path. And I believe on that, I think the interim government is on the right path. You can compare this with other splinter groups, whether they have a functional government the way we do, whether they have the intellectual capacity the way we do, whether they deliver to the Amazonian people the way we do, whether they go into the daily challenges that we face, whether internally or externally, the way we do. I think on all these fronts, we have come to show the Amazonian people that we are the government that has the mandate to take us to Boya. Over to you.
At every time, the people of Amazonia are wanting to see leadership from the interim government. And every time the interim government has intentionally taken leadership at every front, we've seen positive results. I would say from the day President Sako took office, he started by showing leadership, mobilizing every Amazonian born that was willing to fight for the freedom and finance them. Today, we've seen a twist. Some have been corrupted, some have been negatively influenced. And the people are thinking, like you have said with your mouth, as a mouthpiece of government, the people are expecting the government will take leadership and change the ground game. Most probably as the year is navigating towards its end, and to regain an honorable momentum by January. Dr. Mungwa, you give your last statements. We've come to the end of tonight's State of the Liberation Movement.
Right. Thank you, Paddy. I think before I give my last statement, I have to make this very clear. We have been very, very lucky in a way to have somebody like Dr. Samuel Komisako to take this revolution to where it is. But at the same time, in the course of leading us to sovereignty, we have learned, and we are very willing to make sure that, to let Amazonians know that everybody in the interim government is a potential leader to lead this course. So in as much as Dr. Sako, he's doing a fantastic job, please don't be afraid. Anything happens, we will take Amazonia to Boya. Anybody will come up here, because we now have the roadmap. We now have the instruction. We know what to do in order to make sure that we stay with the Amazonian people. So it is not as if Dr. Sako is no longer there, then this struggle is over. It is not over. It is going to be even harder than what it was before, because we are willing and we are dedicated. So don't be fooled. Everybody in the interim government is a potential leader. So I want to make that very clear. So for my my close-up statement, again, as I said last week, I would like that whenever I come here as the mouthpiece of the government, we need to have some takeaways. It is very important. We have to take some takeaways from here so that we go home knowing exactly where we stand. We've talked about what we need to do at the level of home front. We have restructured the way the ARFs is sort of funded, and the leadership and the strategy and the tactical structure of the ARF. Everything has been revised. So the Secretary of State for self-defense is at the top of his game, and he's working with the ground commanders, of course, under the purview of Dr. Samuel Ekomesako. On the side of the diaspora, I've mentioned about creating a voting bloc. We have to come together, at least for the future of Ambazonia. It's not about personality here. It's not about, oh, I like Dr. Sako, I don't like him. If you think that Ambazonia has to be independent, we have to form a voting bloc so that we can approach politicians, we can approach senators, we can approach our congressmen directly, and we don't have to go through lobbyists. I'm not saying that we have to get rid of the lobbyists. There may be certain situations where we need them, but we should be able to go straight to congressmen and they will listen to us because we form a voting bloc. So these are the two pieces of message that I have for Ambazonians this week, and I wish you the best, and look forward to being with you again next week. Over to you.
All right. May we share the grace.
May the grace of our Lord be with you in all that you do.
Rocktown in the building.
Rocktown in the building. Rich boy on the beach. Ay, 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 ay. Thunder. Ha. Hey, booby. Woo. May the grace
of our Lord be with you in all that you do.
Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up.
With all that's fair,
Na, 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 na.
your labor will not be in vain.
His mighty hands is upon you, and there is nothing
that you cannot achieve.
Amen, amen, no. Amen, no. Amen, amen, no. Amen, no. Amen, amen. Listen, listen. Let I go follow you. All about it. Let I go follow you. Let your banner. Let I go follow you. If you believe, let I go follow you. Na, 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 na. Yeah, 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 yeah. Amen, amen. Carico, carico. I no better cut it. Money kill a fat, kill a fat. Me no go down grade. Up, 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 here they go. Fly so high like an eagle. Jehovah controller. Amen, amen, amen. You will go so high and everything go to work for you. Amen, amen, amen. Amen, amen, amen. Oh, yeah. You shall not die but live long life. I pray for you. Amen, amen, amen. Amen, amen, amen. Oh, yeah. Then go to try, then go to feel. You go to go, you go to come. Now the grace of God, they carry you go. Hey, the grace of God be with you in all that you do. You are successful. Your labor will not be in vain. His mighty hands. And there is nothing. Amen, amen, no. Amen, no. Amen, amen, no. Amen, no. Amen, listen, listen. Let I go follow you. All about it. Let I go follow you. Let your banner. Let I go follow you. If you believe, let I go follow you. Na, 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 na. Yeah, 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 yeah. Amen, amen. Carico, carico. Me I no better cut it. Money kill a fat, kill a fat. Me no go down grade. Up, 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 here they go. Fly so high like an eagle. Jehovah controller. Amen, amen, amen.
women in power all across Africa. Fire! Burn them! Shooting everywhere, just a blam blam blam. Women are dying, children are dying. Everywhere, just a chaka chaka chaka. Greedy man, about to follow, like the one Humpty Dumpty Dumpty. Old and sick, power freak. He wants to pull down everybody, body. Run away, run away, you greedy. Run away, run away, you vampire. Run away, you murderer. Run away, you bastard. Run away, you greedy. Run away, you vampire. Run away, you murderer. Run away, you bastard. I cry for Kwakwa. Yaounde Douala. Makomba Minda. Melov Munyenge. Bafute Nazi. All of them are crying. Some of them are weeping. All of them are crying.